Today we'll talk about the 5 basic steps for real estate photography. This is a very basic video to give you enough information to get you started. In the video, I'll discuss why and how you should use HDR. HDR stands for High Dynamic Range. Basically, it means that you take multiple exposure and you combine them into one photo. There's other methods that you can learn later on called flambient. Flambient includes a flash shot and an ambient shot, and then you combine that into one exposure in the end in Photoshop and Lightroom. But for today, we're gonna keep it very simple. So here's the 5 steps. Step 1, we're gonna talk about gear. Step 2, settings and shooting. Step 3 is editing. Step 4 is exporting, and step 5 is delivering the final product. Step 1 is gear. You're gonna need a camera, a wide angle lens, and a tripod. You'll need a camera that can bracket photos. Most enthusiast camera or professional DSLR and mirrorless cameras should have this feature. What this means is that the camera can take multiple exposures automatically. What you do in post-production is combine the 3 to 5 exposures into one image. If you don't have this feature, there's another way I will show you in the next step. In addition, you'll need a wide-angle lens such as 12mm, 14 or 18mm. Anything wider than 12, you'll be fisheye, and then anything tighter than 18, you might be too tight to capture the entire room. Last but not least, you must have a solid tripod. Any tripod will do, but later down the line, you might want to upgrade to a very sturdy tripod. To recap, you need 3 things: a camera, a wide angle lens, and a tripod. Step 2, we're going to be talking about settings and shooting. In terms of setting, you want to put your camera into manual mode. Set the ISO to 320 or 400. Another thing I forgot to mention is you want to have your aperture set to 7 or 8. That way you can have the sharpest image possible with everything in focus. Then after that, you want to turn on your bracket setting. If you don't have automatic bracketing, you can just take multiple exposures manually.
So what you're gonna have to do is manually scroll through the dial. So you scroll until your meter is at this 2, says it's basically underexposed. Take a shot, then change your shutter speed until it's at 1, and then change your shutter speed until it's at 0.
Every camera is a little different. I'll show you mine, but you can look up how to bracket, insert your camera name, and find a YouTube video for it. Next, set the metering mode to center weighted average. This way the camera can calculate the exposure based on the entire room and not just a single spot. Lastly, dial in your shutter speed and then take the shot. In my case, I have it set to 5 exposure at 1 stop apart. In other words, every exposure gets a little bit brighter. If you're doing it manually, you want to start at -2 and then you go to -1, 0, +1, +2. So that way you get a full range. You want to make sure you get 3 to 5 exposure. You could do 3, but 5 is safer since you have more exposures to work with, especially just starting out.
You're gonna want to go to here, put it on one shot. One shot is when you and the subject are not moving. You want it to be on a neutral profile. We could leave the white balance as auto. The metering, you want to put it center weighted average, and then also make sure you shoot raw, obviously. Next, you want to set the shutter speed last. So then you want this to be around f7 or f8. Then you want your ISO in the 320 and 400. My camera is a little different. I have to set my shooting to a self timer, 2 seconds. Then I go up to this menu, and then I could scroll and it opens up this bracket for me. In total, I have 5 exposure. And then I could just take the shot, change the shutter speed until this entire exposure bracket is sitting at 0. What that basically means is that what it's considered an expose, and then 2 overexposed, and then 2 underexposed. So in this case, I'm just pointing it over here. If I point it somewhere else, it's gonna be a little different. You see how it moved? For my camera, in order to get 5 bracket shots, you have to go to the setting menu all the way over here, and then on the first page, number of bracket shots.
Going on to step 3, we're going to be editing. When you import the images to Lightroom, you can use all 5, or you can just use the minimum 3. Select the best 3 exposure. So you want something a little dark, something in the middle, and then something on the bright end. Combine it all using HDR. Use the shortcut key Control H in Lightroom. Basically what this does is it takes information from each exposure and fusion it into one image. Step 4 is exporting. My exporting setting is maximum file size of 900 kilobytes. The MLS listing have a maximum size of 6 megabytes, but depending on the realty you're working with and the realtor, they might have a preference on file sizes they want to deal with. You might want to discuss that with them. So step 5 is delivering. I use WeTransfer. It's fast and efficient for me. I don't have to give permission on Google Drive or Dropbox. I've used that in the past and it seems to hold up my workflow a little bit, but do what work for you. Some might argue that Flambient is better than HDR, though I say that it depends on the situation. Most of the time, HDR is enough to get the job done. Sometimes it's worth it to do a Flambient shot, sometimes it's not. You're gonna have to determine that yourself. I wanna say 80% of the time, regular listings, HDR works just fine. I'm in the Chicago market. That might be different in your city, your area, your town. Overall, I say start with HDR and then you can tweak your style as you go, because you don't want to spend so much time on one photo that you're losing out on other jobs. Just keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. If you find this helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel. Also, I'm shooting this video right now on the C70 with a 10 to 20 millimeter lens. The audio I'm using is a Rode Wireless Go 2 and their lav mic.